Captain Jake Morrison stood at the large window of the USS Liberty, watching Earth grow bigger in front of them. The blue planet looked beautiful from space, just like the old pictures he had seen as a child. But something felt wrong. The planet looked too quiet, too dark in places where bright cities should be shining. "Captain, we have a problem," said Commander Lisa Brooks. She was looking at her computer screen with worry on her face. "I'm not seeing any of the space stations or satellites that should be around Earth. The communication signals are all wrong too." Jake walked over to look at her screen. The numbers and graphs showed something that made his heart beat faster. After 300 years away from home, the human fleet was finally coming back to Earth, but Earth was not the same place they had left behind. The fleet was huge. 12 massive ships carried almost 2 million people. These were the children and grandchildren of the brave humans who had left Earth centuries ago to build new homes among the stars. They had done well out there, creating wonderful cities on distant planets. Now they were coming home to share what they had learned and to see their old world again. But as the ships got closer to Earth, the truth became clear: the planet below them was hurt, really hurt. Jake could see burn marks across the land, dead oceans that should have been blue, and the broken pieces of what used to be great cities. "All captains to the main meeting room," came the voice of Admiral Ryan Parker over the ship's speakers. Admiral Parker was the boss of the whole fleet, and he sounded very serious. Jake hurried to the meeting room on the biggest ship, the USS Constitution. All the other ship captains were there too, and everyone looked worried. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Parker began. He was an old man with gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice was strong. "I have bad news. It looks like we are too late. Earth has been attacked and taken over." The big screen in the room showed pictures of Earth from space. The damage was everywhere. Huge burn marks covered the land like scars. The oceans looked sick and gray. Where millions of people used to live, now there were only empty ruins. Dr. Amy Peterson stood up. She was the smartest person on the fleet when it came to studying aliens and their technology. "I've been looking at these burn patterns," she said. "This damage was made by plasma weapons. That's technology much more advanced than anything Earth had when we left." Lieutenant Colonel Steve Adams was next to speak. He was in charge of all the soldiers on the fleet. "Sir, we're picking up strange buildings and machines all over the planet. Whoever did this is still down there, and they're not friendly." Jake felt anger growing in his chest. 300 years of human progress, wiped out by enemies they had never even known existed. All those people, all those cities, all that history, gone. But as he looked around the room at the faces of his fellow officers, he saw something that made him proud. These men and women had been raised on frontier worlds, where life was hard and people had to be strong. They were not broken by this news. They were angry. "What do we do now, Admiral?" asked Captain Susan Davis. She commanded the USS Defiance, one of the fastest ships in the fleet. Admiral Parker looked at each of them. His face was hard like stone. "We find out who did this, and then we make them pay." The meeting went on for hours. They learned more about the enemy. The aliens called themselves the Kethmori. They were a warrior race that had spent thousands of years conquering other planets and making slaves of the people they found there. They had found Earth 50 years ago and decided it would be theirs. "They came in force," Dr. Peterson explained. "Hundreds of ships. They bombed the major cities first, then landed armies to finish the job. The Earth governments tried to fight back, but they were not ready for this kind of war." Jake thought about his own childhood on New Texas, one of the colony worlds. Life there had been hard, but it had made strong people. Every colonist knew how to fight, how to work together, how to survive when things got bad. Earth had been peaceful for too long. The people there had forgotten how to be warriors. "What about survivors?" asked Captain Morrison. "There are some," Colonel Adams replied. "We're picking up small groups of humans hiding in the mountains and forests, but they're scattered and weak. The aliens have been hunting them for 50 years." The room fell silent. Everyone was thinking about the same thing. Somewhere down on that hurt planet, their own people were hiding in caves and broken buildings, afraid and alone. The aliens had taken everything from them, their homes, their families, their freedom. How many alien ships are around Earth? Admiral, Parker asked. About 30 big ones, replied Commander Brooks. They're old ships, built for bombing planets, not for fighting other spaceships. They've been sitting in orbit for years, getting lazy. Jake smiled for the first time since seeing Earth. They think they're safe. They think no one can challenge them. That's right, said Dr. Peterson. They've been bullying helpless people for so long, they've forgotten what a real fight looks like. The human fleet was different from anything the galaxy had ever seen. These ships were built by people who had spent centuries fighting hostile planets, dangerous weather, and alien creatures. Every person on the fleet knew how to fight. They had learned from the best military traditions of old America, but they had made those traditions stronger and smarter. We have advantages, Colonel Adams said. Our ships are smaller but faster, our weapons are newer, and our people. He looked around the room. Our people have been fighting for survival their whole lives. These aliens have been living easy, beating up on people who can't fight back. Admiral Parker stood up. I want all ships ready for battle. We're going to show these aliens what happens when they mess with Americans. We're going to take back our home. As the meeting ended, Jake walked back to his ship thinking about what lay ahead. The enemy was bigger and had more ships, but they had made one big mistake. They had hurt Americans, and Americans don't forget. Americans don't forgive. And Americans never ever give up. The USS Liberty was ready for war. Its crew of 500 men and women had been trained by the best military minds in the colonies. They knew how to fight smart, how to use their speed and intelligence to beat bigger enemies. They had weapons that could punch through alien armor, and they had something even more important. They had the spirit of people who would rather die than live as slaves. Jake looked out at the other ships in the fleet. Each one carried families, soldiers, scientists, and workers. All of them were ready to fight for their home planet. All of them were ready to show the galaxy what human courage looked like. The aliens on Earth had no idea what was coming for them. They thought they were safe, that they had won forever, but they were about to learn something important about humans. When you hurt Americans, when you take their freedom, when you harm their people, you wake up something terrible and beautiful. You wake up the fighting spirit that had carried humans from Earth to the stars. The war for Earth was about to begin. And the aliens were going to learn why you should never underestimate Americans who are angry and ready to fight. The alien who ruled Earth was named Warlord Zekthal. He was a Kethmori, which meant he looked like a giant insect that could walk on two legs. His skin was hard like armor, and his eyes were black like deep space. He had sharp teeth and claws that could cut through metal. But the most dangerous thing about him was his mind. He was smart, cruel, and he enjoyed making other beings suffer. Zekthal sat on his throne in the command center that used to be Los Angeles. The building was made of dark metal and strange purple lights that hurt human eyes to look at. Around him, dozens of other Kethmori worked at control panels, watching over their conquered planet. "My lord," said one of his officers, a smaller Kethmori named Victor, "we have detected ships approaching Earth, 12 vessels, coming from deep space." Zekthal made a sound like clicking metal. This was how the Kethmori laughed. More humans returning home, how amusing. They probably think they can save their pathetic planet. "Should we destroy them immediately, my lord?" "No," Zekthal said, his voice like grinding stone. "Let them come closer. I want to see the fear in their eyes when they realize what has happened to their world. Then we will make them into slaves, just like the others." The Kethmori had been conquering planets for thousands of years. They were very good at it. They would find a world with intelligent life, study it from far away, then attack with overwhelming force. They would destroy the governments, break the armies, and make the survivors into workers. It was simple, and it always worked. "How many beings are on these ships?" Zekthal asked. "Our sensors show approximately 2 million, my lord. They appear to be using primitive technology. Their ships are small and their weapons are weak. Zechtel's laugh grew louder. 2 million humans would make excellent slaves. The Kethmori always needed more workers for their mines and factories. These new humans would learn to serve, just like all the others. Send them our standard surrender message, Zechtel ordered. Tell them to land their ships and prepare to be processed. If they refuse, we will destroy them. On the USS Liberty, Captain Jake Morrison received the alien message. The words appeared on his screen in English, but the meaning was clear and terrible. The aliens wanted the human fleet to give up without a fight. They wanted to make slaves of every man, woman, and child on the ships. Over my dead body, Jake said quietly. Commander Lisa Brooks looked at the message too. They think we're just refugees running home to Mama. They have no idea what they're dealing with. Jake called a meeting of his senior officers. In the room were Colonel Steve Adams, Dr. Amy Peterson, and the other people who helped run the ship. They all looked angry but calm. These were people who had grown up on frontier worlds where danger was always close. Ladies and gentlemen, Jake began, the aliens have made us an offer. They want us to surrender and become their slaves. What? Do you think we should tell them? I think we should tell them to go to hell, Colonel Adams said. And then we should send them there personally. Everyone in the room nodded. Dr. Peterson spoke next. I've been studying their message and their technology. These aliens are bullies. They're used to fighting scared, unprepared people. They've never faced a real military force. What do you mean? Asked Jake. Look at their ships. Dr. Peterson put pictures on the big screen. They're huge and heavily armed, but they're built for bombing planets, not fighting other spaceships. They're slow and hard to turn. Our ships are smaller but much faster. Colonel Adams stood up. Captain, I've been training soldiers for 20 years. I know the difference between hunters and prey. These aliens think they're hunters, but they've been living soft for too long. They've forgotten what real hunters look like. Jake smiled. The human fleet was full of real hunters. Every person on the ships had been raised on colony worlds where life was hard. They had fought hostile weather, dangerous animals, and sometimes other humans who wanted to take what they had. They knew how to fight smart, how to work together, and how to never give up. What about their weapons? Jake asked. Powerful but slow, Dr. Peterson replied. Their energy beams can punch through our armor, but they take a long time to charge up between shots. If we can stay moving, they'll have trouble hitting us. And their armor? Strong but brittle. It can stop most attacks, but if you hit it in the right place with enough force, it will crack like an egg. Jake felt hope growing in his chest. The aliens were strong, but they had weaknesses. And humans were very good at finding weaknesses and using them. A message came in from Admiral Parker on the USS Constitution. All ship captains report to the flagship immediately. We're going to war. The meeting on the Constitution was different from the first one. Now everyone knew what they were facing, and they were ready to fight. Admiral Parker stood at the front of the room, looking like an old Volf ready for one last hunt. The aliens have demanded our surrender, he said. I have prepared our response. He pressed a button, and a message appeared on the screen. It was short and simple. Americans don't surrender. Come and take us. The room erupted in cheers. Every captain was grinning, and some were actually laughing. They had spent their whole lives hearing stories about their ancestors who had fought for freedom. Now it was their turn. Here's the plan, Admiral Parker continued. We're going to show these aliens something they've never seen before. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten free people. Captain Susan Davis raised her hand. Admiral, what about the humans still on Earth? We can't just abandon them. We're not abandoning anyone, Admiral Parker replied. We're going to save them. But first, we need to deal with the alien fleet. Colonel Adams, what do your Marines need? Colonel Adams smiled. Just point us at the enemy, sir. We'll do the rest. The human fleet began to prepare for battle. In the weapons rooms, technicians checked every gun and missile. In the engine rooms, engineers pushed the power systems to their limits. In the Marine barracks, soldiers cleaned their rifles and sharpened their knives. Jake walked through his ship, talking to his crew. He saw fear in some faces, but he saw more determination. These people had come home to find their world conquered and their people enslaved. They were not going to let that stand. "Captain," said Lieutenant Mary Johnson, one of his junior officers, "are we really going to fight them? They have more ships than we do." "Mary," Jake replied, "my grandfather used to tell me stories about a war fought back on Earth long ago. A small group of farmers and merchants fought against the most powerful army in the world. Everyone said they couldn't win. But they did win because they were fighting for their freedom." "What happened to the big army?" "They learned not to mess with Americans." The alien fleet was moving now, coming out to meet the humans. 30 big ships against 12 smaller ones. It should have been an easy victory for the Kethmori. But Warlord Zekthal was about to learn something important about humans. When you corner Americans, when you threaten their families, when you try to make them into slaves, you don't get frightened refugees. You get warriors. And these warriors had been waiting 300 years for a fight like this. The battle for Earth was about to begin. The first battle happened in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The space between the two planets was full of floating rocks, some as small as cars and others as big as cities. It was the perfect place for the kind of fight the humans wanted to have. The Kethmori fleet came at them in a straight line, 30 big ships moving slowly through space like giant metal whales. Warlord Zekthal was confident. His ships were bigger, his weapons were stronger, and he had more soldiers. This would be an easy victory. "Destroy the human ships," he ordered his captains. "Show them the power of the Kethmori." But Captain Jake? Morrison had other plans. He had spent years studying the old military books from Earth, learning about famous battles and smart generals. He knew that sometimes the smaller army could beat the bigger one if they fought smart. "All ships, this is Morrison," he said into his radio. "Remember the plan. Hit them hard, then disappear. Make them chase you through the rocks. Make them angry. Angry enemies make mistakes." The USS Liberty and 5 other human ships suddenly appeared from behind a large asteroid. They fired their weapons at the alien fleet, bright beams of energy that struck the Kethmori ships like lightning. Then, before the aliens could shoot back, the human ships disappeared again into the asteroid field. "What happened?" Zekthal roared. "Where did they go?" "They're hiding among the asteroids, my lord," reported one of his officers. "Our sensors can't track them in all that rock." "Then blast the rocks, destroy everything." The Kethmori ships began firing their big guns at the asteroids, trying to clear them away. But there were thousands of rocks, and every time they destroyed one, the humans would appear somewhere else, fire their weapons, and vanish again. Captain Susan Davis commanded the USS Defiance. She brought her ship out from behind an asteroid, fired at a Kethmori destroyer, and watched as her weapons punched holes in its side. "That's for my grandmother's house in Denver," she said, then ordered her ship to dive behind another rock. The human ships were like angry wasps, stinging the alien fleet again and again. The Kethmori ships were strong, but they were slow. Every time they turned to face one human ship, another would attack from a different direction. "Sir," Commander Lisa Brooks reported to Jake, "the aliens are breaking formation." "They're getting frustrated," Jake smiled. "Good, now we move to Phase 2. Colonel Adams, are your Marines ready?" "Ready and waiting, Captain." While the space battle continued, small human ships called shuttles were launching from the bigger vessels. These shuttles were full of colonial Marines, the best soldiers in the human fleet. Their job was to get inside the alien ships and fight them face to face. Sergeant Major Karen Lewis led the first boarding party. She was a tough woman from New Montana, where the winters were cold and the creatures were dangerous. She had been fighting things that wanted to kill her since she was a child. "Listen up, Marines," she said to her team as their shuttle approached a Kethmori ship. "These bugs have been bullying helpless people for 50 years. Time to show them what happens when they pick on someone who can fight back." The shuttle hit the alien ship's hull and cut through with a laser torch. The Marines poured through the hole, their weapons ready. The inside of the Kethmori ship was dark and smelled like metal and decay. The first alien they met was a Kethmori warrior, 8 feet tall with armor that looked like black metal. It had weapons that could cut through steel and claws that could rip a person apart. But it had never fought a human marine before. "Come on, ugly," Sergeant Lewis said, and opened fire with her assault rifle. The fight was brutal. The Kethmori warrior was stronger and had better armor, but Lewis was faster and smarter. She ducked under its claws, rolled behind cover, and kept shooting until the alien fell down and stopped moving. "Area secure," she reported, moving to the next section. All through the alien ship, human marines were fighting Kethmori warriors. The aliens were good fighters, but they were used to fighting scared, desperate people. The humans were not scared. They were angry, and they were very good at their job. Private Danny Martinez from Texas found himself facing 3 Kethmori in a narrow corridor. The aliens thought they had him trapped, but Danny had grown up hunting in the desert. He knew how to fight when he was outnumbered. He threw a grenade down the corridor, and when the aliens dove for cover, he ran forward shooting. 2 aliens fell, and the third one tried to run. Danny caught it at the end of the corridor and finished it with his knife. "Don't mess with Texas," he said. Back on the USS Constitution, Admiral Parker was watching the battle on his screens. The human ships were winning, but it was costing them. 2 of his ships had been badly damaged, and many good people had died. "Admiral," reported his communications officer, "we're getting signals from the surface of Earth, the humans down there." "No, we're here. They're asking for help." Parker felt his heart tighten. Somewhere on that planet, people who had been hiding for 50 years were looking up at the battle and hoping for rescue. They had been waiting so long for someone to come save them. "Signal all ships," he ordered. "We're not just fighting for revenge anymore. We're fighting for every human on Earth who's been living in fear. Don't let them down." The message went out to every ship in the fleet. The effect was immediate. The human attacks became even more fierce. Captain Jake Morrison pushed his ship harder, getting closer to the alien vessels before firing and staying longer before running away. Dr. Amy Peterson was working in the Liberty's medical bay, taking care of wounded Marines. But she was also studying pieces of alien technology that the boarding parties had brought back. "Jake," she called to Captain Morrison, "I've figured out something important about their armor. It's not just metal. It's alive, connected to their nervous systems. If we can find the right frequency, we might be able to disrupt it." "Do it," Morrison said. "Whatever you need." Dr. Peterson worked quickly, analyzing the alien bioarmor. The Kethmori had created armor that was part machine and part living tissue. It made them stronger and faster, but it also created a weakness. If you could find the right signal, you could turn their own armor against them. "Got it," she said. "Broadcasting the disruption signal now?" Across the battlefield, something strange began to happen. The Kethmori warriors started moving more. Slowly, their armor was no longer helping them. Some of them began to fall down, unable to control their own bodies. "What's happening to us?" one of the alien officers asked Warlord Zekthal. "I don't know," Zekthal replied, but he was scared. For the first time in his life, he was facing an enemy that was smarter than he was. The battle continued for hours. The human ships darted in and out of the asteroids, hitting the aliens and disappearing. The Marines fought their way through alien ships, room by room, corridor by corridor. And slowly, the Kethmori fleet began to fall apart. "Sir, Commander," Brooks reported, 3 alien ships are retreating. Their formation is completely broken." Jake looked at the tactical display. The enemy fleet was scattered, damaged, and demoralized, but the fight was far from over. "Signal the fleet," he ordered. "Prepare for Phase 3. We're going to Earth." The attack on Earth began on July 4th. Admiral Parker had chosen this date on purpose. It was the day Americans had always celebrated their freedom, and now they were going to give freedom back to their home planet. The human fleet split into 3 groups. Captain Jake Morrison led one group toward the Pacific Ocean, where the aliens had built their biggest bases. Captain Susan Davis took her ships toward Europe and Africa. Admiral Parker himself led the third group toward North America. where the main alien command center waited. "Today we take back our world," Admiral Parker announced to all the ships. "Today we show the galaxy that Americans don't stay down when they're knocked down. We get back up, and we fight." Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty. As his ship entered Earth's atmosphere, below him he could see what 50 years of alien rule had done to his home planet. Great cities had been torn down and replaced with strange metal structures. Green forests had been cut down to make room for alien machines. Beautiful coastlines had been turned into ugly industrial zones. "Look what they did to California," Commander Lisa Brooks said sadly. She was looking at the ruins of Los Angeles, where millions of people used to live. Now it was covered with alien buildings that looked like giant insects made of metal. "We're going to fix it," Jake promised. Every last piece of it. The USS Liberty and 5 other ships dove toward the alien base near what used to be San Francisco. The base was huge, covering miles of land with dark towers and energy shields. Alien ships flew around it like angry bees protecting their hive. "All weapons open fire," Jake ordered. The human ships attacked from 6 different directions at once. Their weapons lit up the sky like the biggest fireworks show in history. The alien shields flickered and sparked under the assault. Then they began to fail. "Shields are down on the North Tower," reported Lieutenant Mary Johnson. "Marines are ready to deploy." "Send them in," Jake said. Small ships full of colonial marines launched from the Liberty and flew toward the alien base. Leading them was Lieutenant Colonel Steve Adams, who had been waiting his whole career for a fight like this. "All right, Marines," Adams said over the radio as his ship approached the base. "These aliens think they own our planet. Let's go explain to them that they're wrong." The Marine ships landed hard on the alien base, and soldiers poured out of them like water from a broken dam. The Kethmori defenders were ready for them, but they weren't ready for the fury of humans fighting to save their home. "Sergeant." Major Karen Lewis kicked down the door of an alien building and found herself face to face with a room full of Kethmori warriors. They were bigger than her, stronger than her, and armed with weapons that could cut through steel. But Lewis had something they didn't have. She had 50 years of anger built up inside her. "This is for every human who died scared and alone," she said, and opened fire. The battle for the alien base was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. The Marines fought their way through corridors filled with deadly traps and alien soldiers. They used grenades to blow holes in walls, flamethrowers to clear out nests of enemies, and sometimes just their bare hands when they ran out of ammunition. Private Danny Martinez found himself separated from his unit in a maze of alien tunnels. He could hear fighting all around him, but he couldn't see his friends. Then he heard something else. Human voices calling for help. He followed the sound and found a group of Earth humans who had been captured by the aliens. They were thin and dirty and scared, but they were alive. There were about 20 of them, including some children who had never seen the sky without alien ships in it. "Are you really here to save us?" asked an old man with tears in his eyes. "Yes, sir," Danny replied. "We're Americans, and we've come to take you home." The rescued humans began to cry with joy. Some of them had been prisoners for their entire lives. They had never believed that rescue would come. Meanwhile, across the ocean, Captain Susan Davis was leading her own assault on alien bases in Europe. The Kethmori had turned the beautiful cities of France and Germany into mining operations, digging deep holes in the earth to find metals for their war machines. "Look at what they did to Paris," said her weapons officer as they flew over the ruins of the City of Light. The famous tower was gone, replaced by an ugly alien structure that pumped black smoke into the sky. "We'll build it back," Susan promised. "We'll build it all back, better than before." Her ships attacked the alien mining operation with everything they had. The aliens fought back desperately, knowing that if they lost here, they would lose everything. But the humans had advantages the aliens couldn't match. They knew the land, they were fighting for their home, and they were very, very angry back in North America. Admiral Parker was leading the assault on the main alien command center. This was where Warlord Zechthel had his headquarters in the Ruins of what used to be Los Angeles, the alien command center was a massive fortress of dark metal and pulsing energy. It had shields that could stop nuclear weapons and guns that could shoot down anything in the sky. The Kethmori had built it to last forever, but they had never faced Admiral Parker and his Marines. "All ships, concentrate fire on the main tower," Parker ordered. "I want that thing turned into scrap metal." 12 human ships opened fire at the same time. Their weapons hit the alien fortress like the hammer of an angry god. The shields held for a few seconds, then began to crack like glass. "Lieutenant." Colonel Adams was already on the ground with his Marines, fighting their way through the outer defenses. The aliens threw everything they had at the humans, but nothing could stop them. They had come too far and lost too much to be stopped now. "Breach the main entrance," Adams ordered. "We're going to drag Zechthel out of his hole and make him answer." "For what he's done?" The Marines blasted through the fortress walls with explosive charges. Inside, they found corridors full of alien technology and rooms where human prisoners had been kept in cages like animals. The sight of those cages made the Marines even angrier. Sergeant Lewis found the prison levels and began freeing the humans trapped there. Many of them had been prisoners for decades. They could barely believe that rescue had finally come. "How many of you are there?" asked one prisoner, a woman who looked like she had once been a teacher. 2 million, Lewis replied. "And we're all here to fight for you." The final battle happened in Zechthela's throne room at the top of the fortress. The alien warlord waited there with his best warriors, determined to make the humans pay for every step they took. "Lieutenant." Colonel Adams kicked down the door and walked into the room with his rifle ready. Zechthel was there, 8 feet tall, and covered in bio-armor that made him look like a nightmare made of metal and flesh. "So," Zechthel said in broken English, "the primitives have come to challenge me. You think you can defeat the great Zechthel?" "I think," Adams replied, "that you picked the wrong planet to mess with." The fight was brutal and short. Zechthel was strong and fast, but Adams had been training for this moment his whole life. When it was over, the alien warlord lay dead on the floor of his own throne room. "Command center secured," Adams reported. "Earth is free." All across the planet the word spread like wildfire. The aliens were defeated. The humans had come home. After 50 years of darkness, the sun was finally shining again on Earth. 6 months after the battle for Earth, Admiral Ryan Parker stood in what used to be the United Nations building in New York. The old building had been destroyed by the aliens, but the humans were building a new one in its place. This new building was different. It was stronger, smarter, and designed to never fall to an enemy attack. The war against the Kethmori was over. Most of the aliens were dead, and the few survivors had run away to the far edges of the galaxy. Earth belonged to humans again, but it was not the same Earth that the colonial fleet had left 300 years ago. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to admiral, was in charge of rebuilding the Pacific coast. Where alien strip mines had torn up the land, new cities were rising. These cities were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They combined human engineering with alien technology that Dr. Amy Peterson had figured out how to use. "We're not just putting things back the way they were," Jake explained to a group of Earth survivors who had come to help with the construction. "We're building something better, something that will make sure this never happens again." The new cities had energy shields that could stop any attack. They had weapons that could reach into space and destroy enemy ships before they got close to Earth. Most importantly, they had people who remembered what it felt like to lose their freedom and were determined never to let it happen again. General Steve Adams, who had been promoted after killing Warlord Zechthel, was training a new kind of army. Every person on Earth, young and old, was learning how to fight. Children learned to shoot before they learned to read. Teenagers spent their summers in military camps instead of playing games. "We made a mistake before," Adams told his new recruits. "We got soft. We forgot that freedom isn't free. It has to be earned every day, and it has to be defended by people who are ready to die for it." The New Earth Defense Force was like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. These soldiers were trained from childhood to fight in space, on planets, and in the cities. They could use any weapon, pilot any ship, and fight in any environment. Most importantly, they all understood that they were fighting for something bigger than themselves. Dr. Amy Peterson had made amazing discoveries by studying the alien technology left behind by the Kethmori. The aliens had used living machines, computers made of organic material, and weapons that could grow and change. By combining this with human engineering, she had created technology that was far ahead of anything else in the galaxy. Look at this. She showed Jake a new type of armor. It's alive, like the alien armor, but it's controlled by human thoughts instead of alien ones. A soldier wearing this can run faster, jump higher, and think quicker than any normal human. What about weapons? Even better, she showed him a rifle that looked like it was made of living metal. This gun learns from every shot it fires. The more you use it, the better it gets at hitting what you aim at, and it can repair itself if it gets damaged. But the most important change was in the people themselves. The humans who had survived 50 years of alien rule were tough and smart. They had learned to hide, to fight with whatever they could find, and to never give up hope. The humans who had returned from the colonies were strong and disciplined. They had learned to work together, to face danger without fear, and to build something beautiful even in the hardest places. Together, these two groups of humans created something new. They created a society that was both free and strong both. Peaceful and ready for war. Captain Susan Davis had been put in charge of building the new space fleet. The ships she was designing were bigger and more powerful than anything the humans had ever built before. But they were also faster and smarter than the alien ships they had defeated. The galaxy thinks we're done fighting, she told her engineering team. They think we'll go back to being peaceful and quiet. They're wrong. The new American starships were designed to carry the fight to any enemy, anywhere in the galaxy. They had weapons that could destroy planets, shields that could stop anything, and crews that had been trained since childhood to fight and win. More importantly, they carried a message. That message was simple: Americans don't start fights, but they finish them. Admiral Parker called a meeting of all the senior officers. In the room were Jake Morrison, Steve Adams, Susan Davis, Amy Peterson, and dozens of other men and women who had fought to free Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, Parker began, we have accomplished something that the galaxy thought was impossible. We defeated an enemy that had never lost a war. We freed our planet from 50 years of occupation. We've rebuilt our world stronger than it ever was before. Everyone in the room felt proud, but they also felt something else. They felt responsible. They knew that what they had built here was special, and they knew it needed to be protected. But our work isn't done, Parker continued. There are other worlds out there, other people who are suffering under alien rule. There are bullies in this galaxy who think they can take whatever they want from whoever they want. He pressed a button, and a map of the galaxy appeared on the wall. It showed thousands of star systems, hundreds of different alien races, and dozens of empires that ruled through fear and violence. We're going to change that, Parker said. We're going to show the galaxy what happens when free people decide to fight for what's right. Jake Morrison stood up. Admiral, are you talking about expanding beyond Earth? I'm talking about spreading freedom, Parker replied. I'm talking about making sure that what happened to Earth never happens to anyone else. I'm talking about building an empire based on liberty instead of slavery. The room was quiet for a moment. Then General Adams spoke up. Where do we start? Parker smiled. We start with the Kethmori survivors. They're out there somewhere, probably trying to rebuild their fleet. We're going to find them, and we're going to make sure they never threaten anyone again. Dr. Peterson had been working on something special. She had taken the best alien technology and combined it with human creativity to build something amazing. It was a new type of starship drive that could cross the galaxy in days instead of years. With this, she explained, we can reach any planet, help any people, fight any enemy. Distance will no longer protect the bullies of the galaxy. Over the following months, the new American fleet began to take shape. Ships that were part machine and part living organism, crewed by humans who had been trained from birth to fight for freedom. These ships would carry American values to the stars. Backed up by American firepower, the galaxy was about to learn something important about humans. They had thought that conquering Earth would end the human threat. Instead, it had created something much more dangerous. It had created a race of people who understood the cost of freedom and were willing to pay any price to protect it. On the first anniversary of the liberation of Earth, Admiral Parker stood before a crowd of 2 million humans. Some of them had been born on Earth, some on distant colonies, but all of them were Americans. 1 year ago, he said, "We came home to find our world conquered and our people enslaved. Today, Earth is free, and we are stronger than we have ever been, but we will not stop here." He pointed to the sky where the new fleet waited in orbit. "We're going to the stars, not as conquerors, but as liberators. We're going to make sure that every being in this galaxy has the chance to live free. And anyone who tries to stop us will learn what our enemies have always learned." The crowd cheered as the new ships began to move, heading out into the galaxy. "Don't mess with Americans,"